Hello there, and welcome to Restful Realities. Tonight, we're embarking on a journey to one of Earth's most extraordinary places. A land where ice meets sky in an endless dance of white and blue, where the sun refuses to set for months at a time, and where ancient cultures have thrived against impossible odds for thousands of years. This is Greenland, the world's largest island, a place that contains more mysteries and wonders than most of us could imagine in a lifetime. As you settle in, feel free to let your mind drift with the narrative. If your eyelids grow heavy, that's perfectly fine. The story of Greenland unfolds slowly, like the glaciers that carved its magnificent fjords over millennia. So breathe deeply, relax into this moment, and let's explore this remarkable land together. Our story begins with something that happened in March of 2025. Greenlanders went to the polls in an election that would alter their political landscape. The center-right Democratic Party secured almost 30% of the vote and 10 seats in Greenland's 31-member parliament. The Inatsisart, just 4 years earlier, in 2021, they had held only 3 seats. The party is led by 33-year-old Jens Frederik Nielsen. The two governing parties, Inuit Ataqatigiit and Siumut, which had dominated Greenlandic politics for years, lost a combined 31 percentage points of the vote. Observers noted this as a significant shift in voter preferences. The election occurred during a period of heightened international attention. United States President Donald Trump had publicly expressed interest in acquiring Greenland, statements that generated discussion both internationally and within Greenland itself. According to news reports, the campaign initially focused on Greenland-Denmark relations, including historical grievances such as the spiral case of the 1950s, when Danish authorities removed Inuit children from their families. Reports suggest that as external pressures intensified, some voters' concerns shifted toward questions of autonomy and self-determination. The Nalarak Party, which advocates for immediate independence from Denmark, came in second place with almost 25% of the vote, gaining 4 seats for a total of 8. The party is particularly popular with fishermen and hunters. On March 28th, Nielsen announced the formation of a coalition government comprising 4 of the 5 parties represented in Parliament. Nielsen described it as necessary during what he called a serious time for Greenland. In January 2026, the leaders of Denmark, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, Italy, Spain, and Poland released a joint statement affirming that Greenland is part of NATO through Denmark and that decisions concerning Greenland's status rest with Denmark and Greenland themselves. Nielsen responded by emphasizing Greenland's status under international law and the principle of territorial integrity, while calling for respectful dialogue through diplomatic channels. Political analysts interpreted the election results as indicating that many voters prioritized addressing internal social and economic challenges alongside the longer-term goal of greater autonomy. A poll conducted in January 2025 found that 85% of Greenlanders did not want to become part of the United States. To understand Greenland, you must first grasp its sheer, staggering immensity. Greenland is the world's largest island, a designation that seems almost inadequate for something of this scale. The total land area spans approximately 2.16 million square kilometers. To put that in perspective, Greenland is roughly 3 times the size of Texas, or about the same size as all of Mexico combined. But here's what makes Greenland truly extraordinary. Almost 80% of this vast landmass is covered by a single, continuous sheet of ice. The Greenland ice sheet, which covers approximately 1.7 million square kilometers, is the second largest body of ice on Earth, surpassed only by Antarctica. This ice sheet is not just a frozen layer sitting on top of the ground. It is a living, breathing, ancient entity that has shaped everything about this land. The ice sheet extends approximately 1,570 miles from north to south. At its widest point, near the northern margin, it stretches about 600 miles across. In some places, particularly in the central regions, the ice reaches depths of more than 3 kilometers. Nearly 2 miles of solid ice pressing down upon the bedrock below. Think about that for a moment. Nearly 2 miles of ice, accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years, layer upon layer of compressed snow, each stratum holding within it the memory of ancient atmospheres, of long-gone climates, of worlds that existed before human civilization began. The average thickness of the ice sheet is about 5,000 feet, or roughly 1,500 meters. The weight of all this ice is almost incomprehensible. The Greenland ice sheet contains approximately 2.9 million cubic kilometers of ice. If it were to melt completely, global sea levels would rise about 7.4 meters, or roughly 24 feet. Major coastal cities around the world would face catastrophic flooding. The geography of continents would be redrawn. Miami, New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, all would face severe impacts. Scientists have determined that the ice sheet has existed in some form since the Eocene epoch, which spans from about 56 million to 34 million years ago. Deep-sea sediment cores from northeast Greenland, the Fram Strait, and the south of Greenland suggest that the ice sheet has continuously existed for at least 18 million years. Geological records show more numerous evidence of glaciation after about 14 million years ago, during the Middle Miocene period, but the ice sheet's history is not one of steady constancy. There have been warmer periods when it shrank dramatically. The period from 424,000 to 374,000 years ago is considered the best analog to our current global climate. During that phase, Greenland is thought to have been almost ice-free. The land beneath the ice, scientists have discovered, would rise if the ice disappeared. Much of Greenland's bedrock surface lies near or below current sea level, held down by the tremendous weight above it. The Greenland ice sheet faces an uncertain future. For millennia, the processes of accumulation through snowfall and loss through melting and calving existed in rough balance. But in recent decades, that balance has shifted dramatically. Since 1998, the ice sheet has lost mass almost every year. The years 2012 and 2019 saw record ice loss. Between 1991 and 2004, average winter temperature at one location, Swiss Camp in the ice sheet's interior, rose almost 6 degrees Celsius, 11 degrees Fahrenheit. These are not minor fluctuations. They represent a fundamental transformation of one of Earth's most important climate regulators. The 1970s were the last decade when the Greenland ice sheet grew, gaining about 47 gigatons per year. From 1980 to 1990, there was an average annual mass loss of about 51 gigatons per year. The period from 1990 to 2000 showed an average annual loss of 41 gigatons per year. The year 1996 was the last time the ice sheet saw net mass gain. As of 2022, the ice sheet had been losing ice for 26 consecutive years. Retreat of outlet glaciers as they shed ice into the Arctic is a large factor in the decline of Greenland's ice sheet. Estimates suggest that losses from glaciers explain between 49 and 67% of observed ice loss since the 1980s. Net loss of ice was already observed across 70% of the ice sheet margins by the 1990s, with thinning detected as the glaciers started to lose height. Between 1998 and 2006, thinning occurred 4 times faster for coastal glaciers compared to the early 1990s, falling at rates between 1 meter and 10 meters per year, while the landlocked glaciers experienced almost no such acceleration. The ice sheet is not melting uniformly. Coastal regions are bearing the brunt of the warming. These changes are not just statistics. They represent real consequences. The ice sheet reflects sunlight back into space, helping to keep the planet cool. As it shrinks, less sunlight is reflected. More is absorbed by the darker land and ocean beneath, and the warming accelerates. It's a feedback loop, one that concerns scientists deeply. Yet even as it changes, the ice sheet remains magnificent, terrible and beautiful beyond words. Standing at its edge, looking out across an endless expanse of white, broken only by the curve of the horizon, you feel something ancient and powerful. This is ice that fell as snow when mammoths walked the earth, compressed over millennia into something that seems eternal, even as it slowly, inexorably begins to change. The story of Greenland's European discovery, as told through medieval Icelandic sagas, centers on a hot-tempered man with red hair and an even redder beard. His name was Erik Thorvaldsson, but history knows him as Erik the Red. Most of what we know about his life comes from two primary sources, the saga of Erik the Red and the Greenlander saga, both written centuries after the events they describe. According to these sagas, Erik was born around 950 CE in the Jæren district of Rogaland, Norway. The sagas tell us his father, Thorvald Asfoldsson, was exiled from Norway for manslaughter. When Erik was about 10 years old, the family sailed west to Iceland, joining the Norse settlers who had been arriving there since around 860 CE. The sagas portray Iceland at that time as a frontier society where disputes were often settled violently. Erik married a woman named Skjoldhald Jorin's daughter, who came from a wealthy family. They settled at Hakadalr, where Erik built a farm called Eriksterier. Historical records suggest they had at least 4 children together, including a son named Leif, who would later gain fame as an explorer. But according to the saga accounts, Erik's violent temperament repeatedly caused trouble. Around 982 CE, the sagas describe how some of Erik's servants accidentally caused a landslide that destroyed his neighbor's house. The neighbor killed Erik's servants in retaliation. Erik, in turn, killed the neighbor. He moved to another settlement, but conflict followed. The sagas tell of another dispute that resulted in several deaths, including 2 sons of Erik's neighbor. Erik was brought to trial and found guilty. The court outlawed him from Iceland for 3 years. Given that he couldn't return to Norway due to his father's crimes, Erik needed to find another destination. The sagas indicate Erik had heard stories of land to the west. Around 877 CE, according to historical accounts, an Icelandic settler named Gunnbjörn Olsson had been driven by a storm to sightland between Iceland and Greenland. About 80 years before Erik's exile, another outlaw named Snæbjörn Galti had attempted to settle this western land, but the expedition ended in disaster. In 982 CE, according to the sagas, Erik sailed west with a small group of followers. After about a week at sea, they sighted land. What they found was forbidding. The sagas describe Erik spending his 3 years of exile exploring the southern and western coasts, searching for habitable land. The saga accounts indicate he found sheltered valleys in the deep fjords of the southwest and west where grass grew. Erik established a base at a place he called Brattahlid, at the head of what is now known as Tún Jugliarvik Fjord, near the modern settlement of Kesiarsik. When his exile ended in 985 or 986 CE, the sagas tell us Erik returned to Iceland with a plan. He needed to convince other Icelanders to follow him. The sagas explicitly state that Erik called the land Greenland because, as the text says, more men will want to go there if the land has a good name. This suggests a deliberate marketing strategy. Though there were indeed green valleys in the south, where grass grew during summer. Historical evidence indicates that in 985 CE, 25 ships set sail from Iceland. The sagas report that only 14 arrived safely, with the rest either forced back by storms or lost at sea. Archaeological evidence confirms that a viable colony was established. Eric set up his chieftain's seat at Brattahlio in what became known as the Eastern Settlement. By the year 1000 CE, based on archaeological findings and saga accounts, the Norse population in Greenland had grown to between 3,000 and 5,000 people, spread across 300 to 400 farms. The colony appears to have flourished for a time, with evidence of farming, hunting, and trade. The sagas indicate Eric died around 1003 CE during a winter epidemic that affected the colonies. Historical records suggest this disease was brought by new settlers arriving from Iceland. Archaeological evidence indicates the Norse settlements survived for roughly 500 years, a remarkable achievement in one of Earth's most challenging environments. At their peak, based on physical remains, Norse Greenland had its own bishop, stone churches, monasteries, and evidence of active trade with Europe. However, the archaeological record shows the colonies gradually weakened. Several factors likely contributed to their decline, though scholars debate the relative importance of each. Climate records indicate cooling temperatures during what would become known as the Little Ice Age. This cooling would have reduced the productivity of grasslands that sustained livestock. Historical records show that contact with Europe became less frequent over time. The last known written document from the Norse settlements dates to 1408, recording a wedding at Halsey Church. After this date, European contact with the settlements ceased, and when later expeditions arrived in Greenland in the 18th century, they found no trace of Norse descendants, only thriving Inuit communities. What exactly happened to the final Norse Greenlanders remains one of archaeology's enduring mysteries. Several theories have been proposed based on available evidence. Some scholars suggest the population may have succumbed to disease, malnutrition, or the increasingly harsh climate. Others propose emigration, with survivors sailing back to Iceland or Norway, though no Icelandic records document such an arrival. Archaeological evidence shows increasing contact between Norse and Inuit populations as the Thule people expanded southward. Some researchers have speculated about possible conflict, though physical evidence for large-scale violence is limited. Another theory suggests gradual absorption into Inuit communities through intermarriage. Though genetic studies of modern Greenlanders have found limited Norse DNA, recent archaeological work has revealed that the Norse diet changed over time, with increasing reliance on marine resources and decreasing evidence of livestock remains in later periods. This suggests adaptation to changing conditions, though apparently not sufficient for long-term survival. The Norse disappearance from Greenland serves as a historical example of how environmental change and isolation can challenge even well-established communities. What we can say with certainty, based on archaeological evidence, is that Eric the Red's colonization effort created settlements that endured for approximately half a millennium before vanishing from the historical record. Long before Eric the Red ever conceived of Greenland, long before any European ship sailed those northern waters, people had already claimed this forbidding land as home. The story of human habitation in Greenland stretches back roughly 4,500 years, and it is a story of extraordinary adaptation, resilience, and survival. The first people to arrive in Greenland came from the west, from what is now Canada. They used the islands of the Canadian Arctic as stepping stones, crossing from Ellesmere Island to northwestern Greenland around 2500 BCE. These were the people of what archaeologists call the Sakak culture, named after the site in Greenland where their remains were first discovered. The Sakak people were Paleo-Eskimos, distinct from the Inuit who would come later. They were hunters, following herds of caribou across the tundra, hunting seals along the coasts, surviving in one of the most challenging environments humans have ever inhabited. They made their tools from stone and bone, built temporary shelters, and developed intricate knowledge of the Arctic environment. For reasons that remain unclear, the Sakak culture disappeared around 800 BCE. They were followed by the Dorset culture, another group of Paleo-Eskimos who arrived around 700 BCE. The Dorset people were more sophisticated in some ways, developing new hunting techniques and creating artistic traditions. But they too eventually vanished from Greenland around the 1st century CE. For several centuries, Greenland was uninhabited. The island sat empty, a vast frozen wilderness waiting for the next wave of human habitation. Then, around 700 CE, there was a brief late Dorset recodify of northeastern Greenland. But this too proved temporary. The ancestors of modern Greenlanders arrived between 1000 and 1400 CE. They were the Thule people, Neo-Eskimos who originated in Alaska and spread eastward across Arctic Canada before reaching Greenland from the north. The Thule culture was more advanced than previous Arctic peoples. They developed the kayak, that remarkable hunting boat that is still used today. They created sophisticated harpoons for hunting marine mammals. They domesticated dogs and used dog sleds for transportation across the ice. Thule expansion into Greenland happened at roughly the same time as the Norse colonization of the south. For centuries, these two peoples, the Thule in the north and the Norse in the south, lived largely separate existences. But as the climate cooled and the Thule moved southward, contact between the two cultures increased. The nature of this contact, whether peaceful or hostile, collaborative or competitive, remains a subject of scholarly debate. What is certain is that the Thule survived and eventually flourished while the Norse vanished. By the time Europeans returned to Greenland in the early 18th century, they found a thriving Inuit population descended from the Thule culture. Today, approximately 89% of Greenland's population of around 57,000 people are Greenlandic Inuit. They consist of three main groups, defined by geography and language. The Kalalit of West Greenland speak Kalaalleq, which is now the official language of Greenland. They make up the vast majority of the Inuit population. The Tunumiat of East Greenland, known as Tunu in their language, speak Tunumiat Oragiat, or East Greenlandic. Their dialect differs significantly from Kalaalleq, reflecting centuries of relative isolation in the fjords of the eastern coast. The Inuit, also called Avaner Swarmiat, live in the far north around Qaanaaq and the Thule region. They speak Inuktun, also known as Polar Inuit language. This is the most isolated group, living in some of the northernmost year-round communities on Earth. The population of the entire Thule region is less than 1,000 people in an area roughly the size of Germany. The Inuit of Greenland maintained their traditional ways for centuries, adapting to changes but preserving the core of their culture. They hunted seal, walrus, narwhal, and caribou. They built temporary ice houses, igloos, during winter hunting expeditions, skin tents in summer. They developed an intimate knowledge of ice conditions, animal behaviors, weather patterns, navigation techniques that allowed them to thrive in conditions that would kill most people within hours. There is something profoundly strange about walking down a street at 2 in the morning when the sun is still shining brightly in the sky. It defies our fundamental understanding of how the world works. Day should follow night. Darkness should come. But in Greenland, for weeks or months, depending on how far north you go, the sun simply doesn't set. This phenomenon is called the midnight sun, and experiencing it is one of the most surreal experiences nature offers. The midnight sun occurs because of Earth's axial tilt. Our planet doesn't spin upright in relation to its orbit around the sun. Instead, it tilts at an angle of approximately 23.5 degrees. This tilt is what gives us seasons. And at extreme latitudes, it produces the midnight sun and its opposite, the polar night. The Arctic Circle, located at approximately 66 degrees 33 minutes north latitude, marks the southern limit where the midnight sun can be observed. As you move north from the Arctic Circle, the period of continuous daylight increases. At the Arctic Circle itself, the sun remains visible for approximately 24 hours only on the summer solstice. Just 100 kilometers closer to the pole, it lasts for several weeks. At the North Pole itself, the sun rises once a year around the spring equinox and doesn't set again until the autumn equinox. Roughly 6 months of continuous daylight in Greenland. The midnight sun experience varies dramatically depending on latitude. In the southernmost towns like Qeqertoq and Nanortalik, which lie south of the Arctic Circle, the midnight sun doesn't technically occur. But these towns still experience what Greenlanders call white nights, periods when the sun dips just below the horizon, but daylight never fully fades. During peak summer, these southern towns can have nearly 20 hours of daylight in Ilulissat, one of Greenland's larger towns located just north of the Arctic Circle at the mouth of the spectacular Ilulissat Icefjord. The midnight sun is visible from early June to mid-July. Roughly 6 to 7 weeks of continuous sunlight. Standing on the hills above Ilulissat at midnight, watching the sun hover low over the ice-choked waters of Disco Bay, the icebergs glowing with soft golden and pink light, is an experience that seems to exist outside normal time. Further north, in Uummannaq and Upernavik, the midnight sun lasts even longer, from late April to late August in the northernmost regions. In Qaanaaq, Greenland's northernmost town in the Thule region, the sun doesn't set from mid-April to late August. Approximately 3.5 months of unending day. The quality of light during the midnight sun period is unlike anything experienced at lower latitudes. Because the sun never rises high in the sky, the angle of the light remains low throughout the entire 24-hour period. This creates what photographers call the golden hour effect. But instead of lasting an hour around sunset, it persists for weeks. Everything is bathed in warm, soft light, pinks and yellows and oranges, painting the landscape in hues that seem too vivid to be real. The midnight sun has its dark counterpart, the polar night. Just as the summer brings continuous day, winter brings continuous night, or something close to it. In the far north, the sun disappears completely for weeks or months. In Qaanaaq, the sun sets in late October and doesn't rise again until mid-February. Roughly 4 months of darkness or twilight. The polar night isn't total blackness. At lower Arctic latitudes, there is twilight during midday, a soft glow on the horizon where the sun hovers just below the edge of the world. This twilight provides enough light for people to move about, to see the landscape in shades of blue and purple and gray. In the total polar night experienced at the highest latitudes, only starlight and moonlight illuminate the landscape. And if the moon is below the horizon and clouds cover the stars, the darkness is profound and absolute. Greenlanders prepare for the polar night with rituals and celebrations. The last glimpse of the sun before it disappears is marked with ceremonies. People gather on hillsides, watching the sun slip below the southern horizon for the last time, knowing it will be weeks or months before they see it again. When the sun returns in late winter, there are celebrations to welcome it back, to acknowledge that winter's grip is finally beginning to loosen. The polar night has its own beauty. The darkness allows the aurora borealis, the northern lights, to put on their magnificent displays. The stars shine with a brilliance impossible to see during the midnight sun period. The ice and snow reflect what little light there is, creating a landscape of shadows and subtle shades that has its own stark beauty. But the polar night is also challenging. Depression rates increase. Vitamin D deficiency from lack of sunlight affects health. The cold is more bitter. more penetrating. People huddle indoors more, gather in community centers, and wait for the sun's return. Here is a fact that often surprises people learning about Greenland for the first time. There are no roads connecting towns to each other. Not one. In a territory spanning more than 2 million square kilometers, in a place larger than all of Western Europe, you cannot drive from one settlement to another. Within towns, yes, there are streets and roads. But at the outskirts, the pavement simply ends. This geographical oddity shapes every aspect of life in Greenland in ways that are difficult for people from connected places to fully grasp. Imagine living in a country where you cannot simply get in a car and drive to visit relatives in another town, where moving to a new community requires taking a flight or a boat, where the journey to the nearest neighbor settlement might involve several hours on the water or in the air. The reason for this isolation is simple. The ice. The Greenland ice sheet covers 80% of the island, creating an impassable barrier between settlements. The remaining 20% of ice-free land is mostly rocky, mountainous terrain broken by deep fjords and glacial valleys. Building roads through this landscape would be extraordinarily difficult and expensive, requiring countless bridges, tunnels through mountains, routes that would remain vulnerable to ice, avalanches, and extreme weather. So Greenlanders have adapted to life without road connections. They use boats in summer and early autumn when the waters are navigable. Small motorboats, larger coastal vessels. Ferries ply the waters between settlements, carrying passengers and cargo through fjords and along the coast. These journeys can be spectacular, passing icebergs the size of buildings, navigating narrow channels between rock walls that rise hundreds of meters above the water. In winter, when ice closes harbors and makes water travel impossible, helicopters and small aircraft become the primary means of transportation. Greenland has dozens of small airports and heliports scattered across the territory. Air Greenland, the national airline, operates a fleet of helicopters and small fixed-wing aircraft that maintain connections year-round. Flights are frequent, but can be canceled at short notice due to weather, particularly in winter when storms can ground aircraft for days. Greenland is home to the world's largest national park. The Northeast Greenland National Park measures 972,000 square kilometers. That's 375,000 square miles. To put that in perspective, the park is larger than 166 countries. It's bigger than all of Western Europe combined. The park was established in the 1970s and expanded in the 1980s. It covers the entire northeastern quarter of the island. There are no permanent human inhabitants. The park is protected by the legendary Serious Dog Sled Patrol, an elite branch of the Danish Navy that patrols this vast wilderness by dog sled. These men conduct the longest sled patrol in the world, traveling thousands of kilometers each year across some of Earth's most inhospitable terrain. The park is a haven for Arctic wildlife. Polar bears roam the sea ice. Musk oxen graze on sparse vegetation in ice-free valleys. Arctic wolves hunt in packs. Walruses haul out on rocky shores. Seals populate the waters. The park's remoteness and protection have created one of the last great wildernesses on Earth. Scientists value the park not just for its wildlife, but for what it can tell us about climate history. The ice core samples taken from the Greenland ice sheet within the park contain a record of atmospheric conditions spanning hundreds of thousands of years. Trapped air bubbles preserve ancient atmospheres. Volcanic ash layers mark ancient eruptions. Temperature proxies reveal the rhythm of ice ages and interglacials, stretching back into deep time. The Ilulissat Icefjord produces some of the largest icebergs in the northern hemisphere. This spectacular fjord on Greenland's west coast was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2004. It is fed by the Cermak-Kujalleq Glacier, also known as the Jacobshaun Glacier. This is the fastest-moving glacier in the world outside Antarctica. The glacier flows at speeds of 20 to 45 meters per day. That's up to 150 feet per day. Its velocity has increased dramatically in recent decades. The glacier produces approximately 35 billion tons of icebergs annually. That's 10% of all the icebergs produced by Greenland. More than any glacier outside Antarctica. These icebergs can be massive. Some reach heights of up to 1 kilometer, 3,300 feet, taller than the tallest skyscrapers. When they calve from the glacier face, they create waves that can be detected kilometers away. The sound is like thunder, a deep rumbling that seems to come from the earth itself. Many of these icebergs become grounded on a sandbank at the mouth of the fjord. They pile up behind the obstruction, creating a spectacular ice jam visible from space. Eventually, enough pressure builds up that the icebergs break free, floating out into Disco Bay and then south into the Atlantic shipping lanes. It's widely believed that the iceberg that sank the Titanic in 1912 originated from this glacier. The size, shape, and location all point to the Ilulissat Icefjord as the source. The glacier has been producing enormous icebergs for millennia. But in the era of transatlantic shipping, these natural wonders became deadly hazards. Greenland is home to between 2,500 and 3,000 polar bears. These magnificent predators are found primarily in the northeast and far northwest regions, where they roam the sea ice in search of seals and other prey. They are Greenland's national animal, featured prominently on the coat of arms. Polar bears are the world's largest terrestrial carnivores. Males can weigh up to 700 kilograms, 1,500 pounds. They can kill with a single swipe of their massive paws. Their strength is legendary. They can drag a seal weighing hundreds of pounds across ice for kilometers without stopping. But polar bears are also vulnerable. They depend on sea ice as a platform for hunting. As the ice shrinks due to warming temperatures, the bears lose access to their primary food source. Some populations have adapted to hunting from freshwater icebergs when sea ice is scarce. But this is not a long-term solution. Polar bears can swim for hundreds of miles without stopping. They have been tracked swimming continuously for more than 200 kilometers. But even these powerful swimmers face limits. As the distance between ice floes increases, some bears, particularly younger ones, drown before reaching safety. The bear's sense of smell is extraordinary. They can detect a seal 20 miles away. They can smell a seal underneath a meter of ice. This incredible sensory ability, combined with patience and stealth, makes them supremely effective predators. But it also makes them vulnerable to human hunters, who have pursued them for their valuable pelts for centuries. Narwhals, often called the unicorns of the sea, inhabit Greenland's Arctic waters. These mysterious cetaceans are distinguished by the male's long spiral tusk, which can reach lengths of up to 3 meters, 10 feet. The tusk is actually an elongated canine tooth. Scientists believe it may be used for communication, navigation, or breaking through ice. Narwhals are deep divers. They can reach depths of over 1,800 meters, nearly 6,000 feet. At these depths, the pressure is crushing, the darkness absolute. Yet narwhals hunt for halibut, cod, and prawns in these extreme conditions with apparent ease. The tusks have fascinated humans for centuries. In medieval Europe, narwhal tusks were sold as unicorn horns. They were believed to have magical properties, to neutralize poisons, to cure diseases. They were more valuable than gold. Royal families paid fortunes for them. Even today, scientists don't fully understand the tusk's function. Some believe it may be a sensory organ, capable of detecting changes in water temperature, salinity, and pressure. Others think it's primarily used in male-male competition for mates. What's certain is that the tusk is a remarkable evolutionary adaptation, unique among whales. Narwhals are difficult to spot even during summer when they frequent Greenland's waters. They are found primarily along the northwest coast and in East Greenland. During winter, they migrate into the sea between Canada and western Greenland, living under the sea ice for 5 months. They follow cracks in the ice to breathe. Asterisk musk oxen are prehistoric survivors. They evolved during the Pleistocene epoch alongside woolly mammoths and saber-toothed cats. When those species went extinct, musk oxen endured. Today, approximately 40% of the world's musk ox population lives in eastern Greenland. These massive herbivores can weigh up to 400 kilograms, 880 pounds. They may look like bison, but they're actually more closely related to sheep and goats. Their thick coats are among the warmest in the animal kingdom. The undercoat, called kiviot, is one of the finest and warmest natural fibers known, 8 times warmer than sheep's wool. Musk oxen have adapted to Greenland's harsh climate in remarkable ways. They can survive on sparse Arctic vegetation, mosses, lichens, tough grasses. In winter, they use their hooves to break through snow and ice to reach food. They form defensive circles when threatened. Adults on the outside, calves protected in the center. This strategy worked for millennia against natural predators like wolves. But musk oxen face new challenges. Climate change is altering their habitat. Warmer winters bring more rain, which freezes into ice layers that the oxen cannot penetrate to reach food. Increased parasites in summer affect their health. Despite these challenges, Greenland's musk ox populations remain relatively stable, particularly around Kangerlussuaq, where they can often be seen grazing on grassy plains. Despite its harsh climate, Greenland hosts approximately 230 bird species, though only 30 species live there year-round. The rest are migratory visitors, taking advantage of the brief Arctic summer to breed and raise young. The white-tailed eagle is one of Greenland's most iconic birds. It can attain a wingspan of up to 2.5 meters, 8 feet. These magnificent raptors hunt fish, seabirds, and even small mammals. They are opportunistic feeders, taking advantage of whatever prey is available. The gerfalcon, the largest of all falcon species, is Greenland's national bird. With stunning white plumage, it's known as the white falcon. Gerfalcons are skilled hunters, preying on birds and small mammals. Their speed and agility make them formidable predators. In medieval times, they were prized by European nobility for falconry. Arctic terns perform one of nature's most extraordinary migrations. They breed in the Arctic, including Greenland, during summer, then fly to Antarctic waters for the southern summer. Round-trip journeys of over 70,000 kilometers, 44,000 miles. Annually, they experience more daylight than any other animal on Earth. Fulmars are abundant along Greenland's coasts. These seabirds nest on cliff faces. They feed on fish and other marine life. Their ability to produce a foul-smelling stomach oil as a defense mechanism gives them their name. Fulmar means foul gull in Old Norse. In the cold, dark waters beneath the Arctic ice, something ancient swims. The Greenland shark, known scientifically as Somniosus microcephalus, holds the distinction of being the longest-lived vertebrate on Earth. Research published in the journal Science in 2016 revealed these creatures can live for centuries. The oldest specimen examined was estimated to be approximately 392 years old, with a margin of error that could place its age between 272 and 512 years. Think about that carefully. A shark born during the reign of James I of England, swimming through waters when Galileo was still alive when Shakespeare was writing his final plays. That shark could still be alive today, gliding slowly through the frigid depths off Greenland's coast. The researchers determined these ages using radiocarbon dating of proteins in the shark's eye lenses. Unlike most tissues in the body, these lens proteins form before birth and remain metabolically inert throughout the animal's life. They don't degrade or get replaced. They're like time capsules, preserving chemical signatures from the shark's birth year. The study examined 28 female Greenland sharks caught as bycatch in fishing operations. Their lengths ranged from 81 to 502 centimeters. The largest specimen, measuring just over 5 meters long, was the oldest. Even accounting for the significant uncertainty in radiocarbon dating estimates, the minimum lifespan far exceeds any other known vertebrate. The previous record holder, the bowhead whale, reaches ages of approximately 211 years. Greenland sharks grow extraordinarily slowly. Scientists estimate they add less than 1 centimeter to their length per year. A shark tagged off Greenland in 1936 was recaptured in 1952. Its growth during those 16 years confirmed the slow rate. This glacial growth pattern strongly suggested extreme longevity long before researchers could definitively prove it. These sharks don't reach sexual maturity until they're at least 150 years old. Females need to reach lengths of approximately 4 meters before they can reproduce. This means sharks born in the mid-1800s, during the height of whaling and sealing industries in the Arctic, would only now be producing their first offspring if they survived. Recent genetic studies have begun revealing why these sharks live so long. Researchers sequencing the Greenland shark GENOM discovered multiple copies of genes involved in DNA repair and tumor suppression. They found altered versions of the TP53 gene, often called the guardian of the genome, which helps prevent cancer and repair damaged DNA. The sharks also have increased numbers of genes related to immune response and inflammation control, factors that significantly affect aging and lifespan. The Greenland shark's habitat likely contributes to its longevity. These sharks inhabit some of the coldest ocean waters on Earth, typically staying in temperatures between -1 and 10 degrees Celsius. Cold temperatures slow metabolism dramatically. The sharks move slowly through the water, conserving energy. They swim at speeds less than 3 kilometers per hour, roughly walking pace for a human. They're not active predators in the way we typically imagine sharks. Instead, Greenland sharks are primarily scavengers. They feed on fish, marine mammals, and carrion that drifts down from above. Their diet includes species like halibut, cod, and seals. Evidence suggests they sometimes prey on sleeping seals on the ice or in the water. But mostly, they wait, patient, slow, conserving energy in the perpetual cold. Interestingly, most Greenland sharks are effectively blind. A parasitic copepod, Amatocoida elongata, attaches itself to the shark's cornea. These parasites damage the eye tissue, causing ulceration and near-complete blindness. Yet the sharks thrive despite this handicap. In the lightless depths where they spend much of their time, vision offers limited advantage anyway. They rely on other senses, smell and electroreception, detecting the bioelectric fields generated by living creatures. The flesh of Greenland sharks is toxic to humans and most animals. It contains high concentrations of trimethylamine oxide, which breaks down into trimethylamine during digestion. Consuming untreated shark meat causes symptoms similar to extreme intoxication. However, traditional Inuit knowledge includes methods for preparing the meat safely through prolonged fermentation processes that break down the toxins. The implications of Greenland shark longevity extend beyond simple curiosity. These animals face a conservation challenge unlike most species. With sexual maturity not reached until 150 years of age and likely low reproductive rates, Populations cannot recover quickly from overfishing. Historically, these sharks were hunted extensively for their liver oil. A single large Greenland shark could yield several hundred liters of oil used for lamps and machinery before petroleum alternatives became available. Though directed fishing largely ended by the mid-20th century, Greenland sharks are still caught as bycatch in commercial fishing operations. Thousands die each year in nets and on long lines intended for other species. Given their extreme longevity and late maturity, even modest levels of bycatch mortality could have severe long-term population consequences that may not become apparent for generations. Scientists continue studying these remarkable creatures, hoping to unlock more secrets of their extraordinary lifespan. Understanding the genetic and physiological mechanisms that allow Greenland sharks to avoid age-related diseases for centuries could potentially inform human medicine. Research into aging processes, cancer prevention, and cellular repair mechanisms may all benefit from insights gained from these ancient swimmers of the Arctic depths. Kalaalleq, the West Greenlandic dialect, became Greenland's sole official language in 2009 with the Self-Government Act. This was a significant moment. A former colony asserting its linguistic independence from its colonial power. Kalaalleq belongs to the Eskimo-Aleut language family. It's related to Inuit languages spoken across the Arctic, from Alaska through Canada to Greenland. Speakers of these languages can sometimes understand each other. Though dialects vary significantly, the language has given English several words. Kayak comes from the Greenlandic word kayak. Igloo derives from igloo, meaning house. Anorak comes from anorak, a type of waterproof jacket. These borrowings reflect the Inuits' technological innovations for Arctic. Survival.kalaallisut is a polysynthetic language, meaning it can combine multiple morphemes into single very long words. A single word can express what would require an entire sentence in English. This linguistic structure reflects a different way of conceptualizing the world, where relationships and actions are more important than isolated objects. The language is taught in all Greenlandic schools. Danish is still widely spoken and taught as a second language. English is increasingly common, especially among younger Greenlanders. But the elevation of Kalaalleq to official status represents cultural reclamation, a rejection of assimilation, an assertion that Greenlandic identity and language will endure. Fishing dominates Greenland's economy. It accounts for approximately 90% of all exports. Shrimp, halibut, cod, and salmon are the primary catches. The cold, nutrient-rich waters around Greenland support abundant marine life. Greenland has legislative power over its fisheries. This control is crucial for maintaining sustainable practices. Quotas are carefully managed to prevent overfishing. The goal is long-term sustainability rather than short-term profit, but dependence on a single industry creates vulnerability. Climate change is altering fish distributions. Some species are moving north into colder waters. Others are becoming more abundant as waters warm. These shifts could dramatically impact Greenland's economy. Mining offers potential diversification. Greenland has substantial mineral resources, rare earth elements crucial for modern technology, uranium, gold, diamonds. But developing these resources requires massive infrastructure investment. It also raises environmental concerns in a pristine environment. The debate over mining, particularly uranium mining, has divided Greenlandic society. Proponents argue it could provide economic independence from Denmark, create jobs, fund public services. Opponents worry about environmental damage, health risks, the social disruption that often accompanies mining booms. Nuuk, Greenland's capital, is also its largest city, with a population of approximately 19,000 people. That's about 1/3 of Greenland's entire population. It sits on the southwestern coast at the mouth of a spectacular fjord system. Nuuk is remarkably modern. Colorful buildings dot the hillsides. There are shopping centers, restaurants, a university, a cultural center, internet cafes. In many ways, it resembles any small Nordic city, except for the icebergs floating in the harbor, the fishing boats coming and going, the occasional seal visible in the water's dot. Yet Nuuk also retains connections to traditional Inuit culture. Dog sleds are still used, though increasingly for recreation rather than transportation. Traditional foods like matak and dried fish are sold in markets. The National Museum preserves Inuit artifacts and history. The city faces challenges typical of Arctic communities: housing shortages, high costs of living, limited economic opportunities, youth struggling to find their place between traditional and modern worlds. But there's also vitality, pride, a sense of Greenlandic identity, growing stronger as political autonomy increases. In northwestern and eastern Greenland, dog sledding remains not just tradition, but practical transportation. The Greenlandic sled dog is distinct from other breeds, bred for strength and endurance rather than speed. Teams of 12 to 15 dogs can pull heavy loads across ice and snow for hours without stopping in winter. When frozen fjords and sea ice create natural highways, dog sleds offer reliable transportation. They don't require fuel. They can navigate terrain where snowmobiles bog down. They provide companionship and protection. A good lead dog can sense thin ice and dangerous crevasses, potentially saving its musher's life. The relationship between musher and dogs is profound. These are working partnerships built over years. Dogs are fed, housed, and cared for with meticulous attention. In return, they provide transportation, hunting assistance, and security. The sound of a dog team approaching is still common in many Greenlandic settlements, but dog sledding faces challenges. Younger Greenlanders increasingly prefer snowmobiles, faster, less demanding, more aligned with modern lifestyles. The knowledge of traditional dog handling is being lost. Climate change is reducing the periods when ice is safe for sledding. The future of this ancient practice remains uncertain. Traditional Inuit culture has experienced a renaissance in recent decades. Practices suppressed during Danish colonial rule are being revived and celebrated. Drum dancing is one of the most visible examples. Drum dances serve spiritual, social, and entertainment purposes. Songs are passed from generation to generation. They may tell of animals and people, of legends and history. Performers often dress in traditional costumes. Intricate designs made from animal skins. Mask dancing was forbidden when Christianity came to Greenland. But people in western and northern Greenland practiced these traditions in secret, preserving this important part of their culture. Today, mask dances are performed openly, celebrated as essential cultural heritage. According to practitioners, the scary aspect of mask dances teaches children to deal with unfamiliar situations, toughening them up for moments when they should keep calm, like encounters with polar bears. This practical wisdom embedded in cultural practice reflects the Inuits' deep understanding of how to survive in the Arctic. Young Greenlanders are reconnecting with traditional knowledge, learning skills their grandparents knew: hunting, fishing, reading ice conditions, understanding weather signs. This isn't rejection of modernity. It's integration, taking the best of both worlds, using modern technology while preserving ancient wisdom. As we near the end of our journey through Greenland's mysteries and marvels, let us pause and reflect on what makes this place so extraordinary. Greenland is a land of extremes, where the sun shines at midnight and darkness reigns at noon, where ice that fell as snow millions of years ago flows imperceptibly toward the sea, where fewer than 60,000 people inhabit the world's largest island, creating communities separated by ice and ocean, connected by determination and ingenuity. We've traveled through recent political upheavals that may reshape Greenland's future, explored the vast ice sheet that defines the island's geography and holds enough water to reshape the world's coastlines, walked alongside Eric the Red as he discovered and named this land more than 1,000 years ago, met the Inuit peoples who have called Greenland home for millennia and who continue to thrive despite centuries of challenges, witnessed the midnight sun's golden embrace and felt the polar night's profound darkness. We've stood beside the Ilulissat Icefjord as glaciers calve icebergs the size of buildings. We've learned about narwhals diving to impossible depths, about musk oxen surviving in landscapes that would seem to forbid all life, about polar bears hunting across sea ice that grows thinner each year. We've explored hot springs steaming in snow-covered valleys, vegetation blooming in brief Arctic summers, fjord systems larger than entire countries, and ice cores containing 365,000 years of climate history. Each fact revealing another layer of this land's complexity and wonder. Greenland teaches us about resilience, about adaptation, about the extraordinary things humans can achieve when necessity demands it. It reminds us that Earth still holds places that defy our expectations, that challenge our assumptions, that operate according to rules we rarely encounter in our daily lives. Places where nature still dominates, where wilderness remains wild, where silence is profound and darkness absolute. The story of Greenland is far from finished. Political independence looms. Climate change accelerates transformations. International attention intensifies. Young Greenlanders forge identities that honor tradition while embracing modernity. The ice continues its ancient rhythm, even as that rhythm changes. As you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps you'll dream of icebergs glowing pink and gold under the midnight sun, of ancient ice holding secrets of climates long past, of people who have learned to thrive in conditions that would defeat most of us within hours, of dog teams racing across frozen fjords, of drum dances echoing through Arctic nights, of the northern lights dancing above snow-covered peaks. Greenland is waiting, patient and eternal, ready to share its wonders with anyone brave enough to venture into its frozen embrace. It stands as testament to nature's power and beauty, to human resilience and ingenuity, to the mysteries that still exist in our well-mapped world. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Greenland. If you enjoyed learning about this remarkable place, please consider subscribing to Restful Realities. Hit that like button to help others discover these stories. And leave a comment telling me what aspect of Greenland fascinated you most, or what other distant, extraordinary places you'd like to explore together in future episodes. Until next time, rest well, dream deeply, and remember that the world is far stranger and more wonderful than we often remember. That somewhere tonight, the midnight sun shines over icebergs. That somewhere, people live lives of quiet courage in landscapes most of us can barely imagine. That somewhere, glaciers flow and whales dive, and the aurora dances across polar skies. Good night and sweet dreams.